So let's take a look at the speech. Let's just start with he's at Mount Rushmore. It's beautiful. The fireworks are going off over the sculptures. The airplanes are flying over. It's an absolutely fantastic scene. This is clip 11, is his first clip as he talks about Mount Rushmore.
There could be no better place to celebrate America's independence than beneath this magnificent, incredible, majestic mountain monument to the greatest Americans who have ever lived. Today we pay tribute to the exceptional lives and extraordinary legacies of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Teddy Roosevelt. I am here as your president to proclaim before the country and before the world, this monument will never be desecrated. These heroes will never be defaced. Their legacy will never, ever be destroyed. Their achievements will never be forgotten. And Mount Rushmore will stand forever as an eternal tribute to our forefathers and to our freedom.
So the New York Times called this a dark and divisive speech. CNN said it was jaw-dropping. Here is a montage of news people talking about Mount Rushmore, one of our significant memorials, which is, of course, to Lincoln, Jefferson, Washington, and Roosevelt. Here's a montage of that as cut one.
President Trump will be at Mount Rushmore, where he'll be standing in front of a monument of two slave owners and on land wrestled away from Native Americans.
We have to acknowledge that Mount Rushmore is sitting on Lakota land.
The place Donald Trump is going to on Friday is stolen land.
He will inevitably and predictably talk about our heritage. In other words, he will talk about he is the protector of white America.
And to indigenous people, Mount Rushmore, with 4 white presidents, 2 of whom were slave owners, is one of those symbols.
Questions have really been raised about Thomas Jefferson in particular, but also George Washington for their holdings of slaves.
I like questions have been raised, which always means that I'm raising a question. Unbelievable. So talk about dark and divisive. I mean, these are the guys, every single one of us is broken. Every single one of us is sinful, but only some of us have the great ideas that propel humankind forward. Thomas Jefferson, one of those people. Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, 2 more of those people. Who owned the land that these clowns are standing on as they talk about their dark and divisive thing, their dark and divisive agenda? Whose land are they standing on? They're in New York. It was owned by the Canarsie Indians or whoever it was. So it's only Trump. Thereafter, it's only fighting for the elites. It's fighting for the corporations, fighting for the Democrats, all the same thing. Let us move on. I want to listen to as much of this as possible because I don't want you to hear the fight and not hear the actual speech. This is clip 15, talking about what's happening in our country and has been happening for the last month.
1776 represented the culmination of thousands of years of Western civilization and the triumph of not only spirit, but of wisdom, philosophy, and reason. And yet, as we meet here tonight, there is a growing danger that threatens every blessing our ancestors fought so hard for, struggled, they bled to secure. Our nation is witnessing a merciless campaign to wipe out our history, defame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children. Angry mobs are trying to tear down statues of our founders, deface our most sacred memorials, and unleash a wave of violent crime in our cities. Many of these people have no idea why they're doing this, but some know exactly what they are doing. They think the American people are weak and soft and submissive. But no, the American people are strong and proud, and they will not allow our country and all of its values, history, and culture to be taken from them.
So let's listen to the response from Clinton hack Maggie Haberman, now a former journalist working for the former newspaper, the New York Times. Cut 2.
I think what has become clear to people, or should have by now, is this president wants to govern a certain way and wants to run his reelection effort a certain way, and that does not relate to talking about the coronavirus unless it's about describing his administration's response in glowing terms that just don't comport with reality, certainly for the first many weeks as the pandemic was growing. The president wants to have culture wars. He wants to fight on white grievance, and he wants to have a discussion around race that he thinks appeals to his base of supporters, and he has resisted all suggestions that he do it a different way.
Let me translate that from New York Times into the truth. What she's saying is he's trying to take the narrative away from us. He's trying to set, how dare the president, the elected leader of the country, set the narrative when we are the New York Times. Now, let's remember, this is a woman who works for the newspaper that put out the 1619 Project, a lying project that dishonestly says that the United States was founded to protect the institution of slavery. Just an untruth. That's what they put it out. And when someone said, we should call this, I think it was the guy from the Claremont Institute when he said that this should be called the 1619 riots. The woman who wrote this, the New York Times reporter who wrote this, Nicole Hannah-Jones, said, "I'm honored to have these riots called the 1619 Project." Now, the New York Times is calling Donald Trump dark and divisive for saying, no, we will not let our country be destroyed. And Maggie Haberman, like a good Soviet servant, is going out there and pushing that line. Absolutely unbelievable. Here's the next thing that Trump did, which I think was so important. Again, he should just make this speech a day should not go by when he is not hitting the themes in this speech. This is cut 16 on how anyone who opposes these thugs, these villains, these looters, these rioters, anyone who opposes them is being silenced, not by the establishment. This is cut 16.
One of their political weapons is cancel culture, driving people from their jobs, shaming dissenters, and demanding total submission from anyone who disagrees. This is the very definition of totalitarianism, and it is completely alien to our culture and to our values, and it has absolutely no place in the United States of America.
Jennifer Rubin, crazy Jennifer, as we call her now, loony, Google-eyed Jennifer, she says it was the darkly aggressive and fascistic substance of his speech, positing that his enemies want to destroy America and eradicate its history. I just showed you journalist after journalist saying Thomas Jefferson, identifying Thomas Jefferson and George Washington not as the heroic founders of our country, but as two slaveholders. How can she say they don't want to eradicate, they don't want to destroy America? And she made fun of the fact that he tripped over totalitarianism. But this is the fight of the future, because this is corporate. Remember, this is the corporate level silencing of people. You know, it's a week ago we were debating whether gay marriage was moral, and now you can get fired for saying it's not. You know, you can get fired for saying men and women are different. You can get fired for doing anything. And this is corporate capitalism. And part of this is the fault of the right, who put capitalism above everything. They put capitalism and money above God. Let's listen to a little bit more about the cancel culture from Trump. This is cut 17.
In our schools, our newsrooms, even our corporate boardrooms, there is a new far-left fascism that demands absolute allegiance. If you do not speak its language, perform its rituals, recite its mantras, and follow its commandments, then you will be censored, banished, blacklisted, persecuted, and punished. It's not going to happen to us. Make no mistake, this left-wing cultural revolution is designed to overthrow the American Revolution. In so doing, they would destroy the very civilization that rescued billions from poverty, disease, violence, and hunger, and that lifted humanity to new heights of achievement, discovery, and progress. To make this possible, they are determined to tear down every statue, symbol, and memory of our national heritage.
And then, you know, that made Dean Bakay's head spin around, and then he vomited green slime. But it wasn't like The Exorcist at all. Simple truth. He was speaking the simple truth, drove the press so crazy they had to spew lies to override it. This video is sponsored by Blink Sale. the revolutionary invoicing software for contractors and small businesses. Spend less time billing and more time making bank with Blink Sale. Get a free trial at the link in the video description.